Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hello and welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. I have a cool couple here. They're like in the keto world, low carb, man, everyone's using their product and we've always rubbed shoulders and bumped into each other at the conferences of the Low Carb USA and everything else. So Gemma and Dorian, welcome, the Keto Mojo people.
Thank you. Awesome to be here.
So I thought it would be kind of fun just for people to hear, because I remember, I know your story. It's kind of crazy how it all started. How did you get into this realm? What's your background? And so what made you nutty enough to get into this whole area?
Yeah, there you go, the nutty part.
Yeah, well, most people know this bit. Back in 2015, I was 207 pounds overweight. Job wasn't going well. I was on antidepressants, and a friend said, "Hey, you need to give up the white devils, and you got to cast out the carbohydrates from your life." And so I duly did.
And well, at that point, though, I have to add that that was very foreign to us. I mean, I'm peasant stock man, and we made fresh bread every week, and I love pasta, and I love grains, whole nine yards. And I was a product of really the dietary guidelines, man. I grew up on, carbs and diet soda, and all the things that we know are not good for us. I had breast cancer. I had autoimmune things. Rheumatoid arthritis runs in my family. My mother had Alzheimer's. So, we both were just the perfect carb loading couple. And it was the thought of giving up carbs was like, what are you, nuts? And that's not right, because I grew up also dieting since I was 6, and it was low fat, cut the calories, exercise more, and I was really athletic and very stocky. So hence, when we started this, we would just say, yeah, we'll give it a try. It's another fad. And I also went on Atkins when I was 12, and I lost a lot of weight, and I was great, but I couldn't sustain it because everyone's going to Jack in the Box, and I felt left out. And anyway.
So hence, we started off like, we got to do better. We got to get fit, as everybody does. New year, new you. And so we started off paleo to begin with, because we thought, paleo, that's there. And we're just chowing down on fruit leathers, which is, mainlining fructose,
dried mango.
But it's paleo, it's got to be good for you. And, so then we sort of like, we started to learn about the ketogenic diet. We saw all the videos by Finney and Lustig and Taubes, and it was devouring everything on YouTube that you possibly could get for free.
Man.
And so we went on a well-regulated ketogenic diet, and I was testing with an Abbott meter during that time. And 47 pounds of weight came off for me. I came off of all of the antidepressants, and I had this joie de vivre that I felt like when I was like 24, that you could take on the world. Do you know what I mean? That clarity that people talk about, like I can do this. And that's when it's sort of like, I was looking at these strips going, why are they so expensive? Why are they $4?
We were testing, 2-3 times a day to really dial it in, which was important. And we were very strict in the beginning. And what was frustrating for me was he lost 47 pounds in like 3 months, poof, doing yoga, looking great. And I was, my ketones were probably 0.1, 0.2. And I was eating the same foods, but I wasn't losing weight. So I was the typical, hitting it. And it wasn't really until I started to accidentally intermittent fast, because I was so busy, I wasn't eating, that I realized, whoa, it sort of jump-started something for me. And I started to really hit my stride. And I'm somebody who didn't like fasting. Now I love it. And so it was really kind of a game changer for me. And now my ketones sit about 1.2. And when I intermittent fast for more than 4 days, they go up to 6, and I feel great.
Yeah. So do you remember when I popped the question and gave you the business idea.
Yeah. So realize we came from the wine industry, directors of hospitality at wineries, you know, and before that we were in New York and doing it, and we live in Napa. So Dorian, on the way to yoga one morning about 5:30 in the morning, says,
he says, I got this business idea. He says, what we're going to do is we're going to try and introduce a ketone meter at a lower cost for the ketogenic community. And can I borrow some of the home equity line of credit?
Yeah, and I said, so how much?
And I went, probably all of it.
Yeah. So how many years later? 4 years later.
Yeah, and it ended up, you know, you look at that and it was probably all of it. And it became all of it, and then some, and then some, and then some. And then,
you know, so we launched actually at Low Carb USA with Doug and Pam, and we'll be forever grateful to them and their enthusiasm and passion, because that's where we launched and that's where it started.
That was,
and
we started pre-selling
2017
on August 1. And I said to everybody that we'd be delivering on Gemma's birthday, which was September the 12th.
In case you want to send cards.
Yeah, cards. She loves cards.
Presents.
And we started shipping 2 days before that. And then we just had a second shipment on September the 26th, and we're about to do our third. And then we lost our house in the fires in 2017. On like October the 6th.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible, that whole story, because I had just met you at that time. Look at this couple. I'm like, look at this thin, attractive couple, and they're trying to do ketone meters. That was my first thought. And then you showed me your belt and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Because I was new to it at the time too. That's when I was kind of an infant in this stuff too. And I'm like, a ketone meter, what is that? And how does that work? And, you know, it was really cool to see you at all the, you know, and I think now that you've arrived or that you're doing well, it's kind of one of those things when those humble beginnings of the stress of like,
and
mortgaging your house and doing all this stuff and putting all this into this idea where you're going up against the big guys too, right?
Yeah. I recall, you know, the fires just happened. I'm trying to jump from one couch to another, trying to get a Wi-Fi single in a Napa Valley. I'm on a garage forecourt because that's where they got free Wi-Fi, and I'm trying to do customer service at the same time.
Because we were everything
saying,
at that
like,
point.
the stuff hasn't gone up in flames, and Gemma's trying to like work where we can find somewhere to live. You know,
and we have 2 dogs and a cat, and you know.
And your house actually burned down at that time, right?
Oh yeah, it was gone. Completely gone.
Everything got.
Yeah.
So you.
Famous belt that was my non-scale victory, you know, that one is sort of like I don't even have that anymore, which was like that showed the progress over time.
Yeah, but you know, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but you know, it taught us a great lesson in that you have to make a choice. You can choose to say, oh my God, I loved everything, and the business would have sunk because we would have sunk. But we made a real considered effort to say, hey, we have to choose joy. We have to choose the forward path. And that was not easy. And I'll tell you, after making that decision so many times, it's joy, forget joy. But you know, in doing so, you make that jump. And it's the same thing with starting the ketogenic lifestyle. You have to decide. You have to decide that you're going to do it and that it's going to work for you. And, you know, we wanted to give back so much because it changed our lives so dramatically and made such a difference in our life, our relationship, our everything, and our spirituality. Everything was strengthened because we found something that made us feel good. That wasn't artificial. That wasn't something we put in to make us feel good. It was something that we found that worked. And we wanted to share that information and joy. And that's the impetus of everything we do, from the website to the meter to...
You would wonder, if you're looking back, whether or not you would have had the energy in which to do that. I mean, literally, we had just lost the house, and we had been booked in to do a bulletproof conference down in Pasadena. So I hadn't slept for like 36 hours, and then I go down to this bulletproof conference. It was my first like big conference where you got the table, and we hadn't even worked out the booth and everything yet, and we're showcasing it. And then I remember looking across on the conference, and they had the IVs that you could pay to get an IV, and I was like, all right, give me everything, just throw it in here. So to biohack myself through the conference and came back. But you know, I don't think if we were keto, would we have the energy levels to have not only dealt with that, but at the same time, our business was growing. I mean, the community was embracing it. And if it wasn't for the community, we wouldn't be where we were. Yeah. But we also then had the advantage, you know, I remember having that second conversation with Gemma saying, hey, you know, we've just got our check from the insurance company for all our life possessions. Would you mind doing this again and putting it all into the company? So literally, you know, there was a stage back there where not only was it our home equity line of credit, it was our home and all of our possessions that we'd ever had after 22 years of marriage.
You know,
when you just all in, did you guys ever say, oh my gosh, that this is crazy? Or were you just saying, look, this is going to work, we have to make it work?
I kind of like give myself this mental image that I am this Wild West kind of like guy who's, you know, there's at the gambling table, and he throws everything into the pot, and he brings out his pappy's watch, and that goes on the table, and finally he gets the gun out, and I'm all in. I'm all in except my boots and my wife. I'm a dog.
Yeah, and you know, you can't spend too much time thinking about the negative. And I'm somebody who tends to think things out. But if something drives you and it's important, that takes over. But you have to let it.
It's proven out, right? I mean, you know, what's kind of like, you know, from the adversity, something better has been that we've been able to grow the business. And you know, Gemma and I don't have children; we just have our fur babies here, and so we're able to, you know, for us, it's what is going to be our legacy in life? Is it our legacy that we made a buck, or we could make a difference? And that's why we were able to set up the Ketogenic Foundation.
Yeah, so we set up a 501c3 to promote really the information sharing.
It's for clinical trials, studies, and education for the benefit of humankind.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that's important because in the low carb keto community, the problem has been industry doesn't want to pay for it. No one wants to pay for it if they're not going to have a product, if they don't have skin in the game and money to make. And so I think that's a huge thing. And I know you've helped Doug, you're helping to get all the low carb stuff going. And that's a huge deal because you're giving back and you're allowing, and you get it from a business perspective too. You say, look, if we can show this is beneficial, we can show it works, then we grow also. Everyone grows. It's a win-win for everyone. You know, that's kind of the thing is a lot of people, and I said, Jason, bottom line, what matters? He said, helping people, reaching out, doing what you can. And I think we all have that same, that's why we're all, I don't want to say attracted to each other, but you know, I mean, that's why we see that. And, you know, I want to be affiliated with people like you. And, you know, I appreciate it. When I started my business here, you reach out to me and say, how can we support you in what you're doing? This is the front line of medicine. We want to support you. We want to figure out how do we interact with what you're doing? What is beneficial? What's not? And that's really impressive to me. It's like, okay, because you get it too, that if I'm successful, you're successful. It kind of goes back and forth because either way, I'm using your product. All right. Yeah. I've been using your product because look, the most valuable tool I have is a continuous glucose monitor. I need to know ketones. I need to know if that machine's accurate. So my Keto Mojo, I'm having people use that, say, okay, if you see a low sugar, don't call me at 2 a.m. Check it with the Keto Mojo, see what it looks like, right? You're checking your ketones anyways, and you could do both with the same device. And so integrating with our practice and saying, hey, we want to use you as kind of a gold standard, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is awesome because also people who don't know, go to their website and take a look at it. It's keto-mojo.com. I hope I said that right. Yeah. But I go there, I send my patients there because you could tell them better than I can, but the educational stuff that's there and what you're doing to really help the community. Diet Doctor did the same thing. You know, they had free content. Jason Fung's done the same thing because you all care about helping people and, you know, then people get it. So tell people what you have there just so they know.
One of the things we first thought was, you know, there is Diet Doctor and other sites that is out there. But, you know, to get the deeper dive into Diet Doctor, it's actually behind a paywall. So it was like, well, how can we use our product to actually give away as much information as possible for free?
Yeah.
Because, you know, with knowledge comes power. And, you know, Miriam Kalamina, one of the Low Carb USA, says it's going to be a top-down and a bottom-up approach.
So influencers like you and people like us on the bottom coming together and really making that synergy and getting the information out there. And we actually moved our website. Used to be just a regular e-commerce site where we sold meter and we sold strips, and that was it.
I know, I was on there. I bought strips from you guys and the meter and all that when it was new.
Yeah.
I'm like, what was that called? Like a legacy? I was like one of the first.
Founders Club.
Founders Club. Yeah, I was in the Founders Club. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then we said, you know what, we don't want that to be all that we're about. We want to be more than a meter. So we took the shop button and put it over to the side. And then we started to put in articles. We have all of the videos from Low Carb USA, from Doug and Pam's, from all the conferences are there.
147 hours of videos from some of the great minds in the ketogenic community.
Recipes, articles, book reviews, and now we have a marketplace to help people find keto foods.
Yeah. And the cool thing on the marketplace that we just did in the last couple of months is if somebody clicks through that, and any affiliate monies that might come back from that go all 100% to the foundation. It's so it's not to us. You know, we look as if like, how can we have a market forcing function in the fundraising aspect? And you know, our hope is, you know, we get maybe 1 million sessions a month now, or 371,000 new visitors. And the goal is if we can use a little bit of this and we can start that feedback for the clinical trials, especially pilot ones. I was amazed when I found out from some doctors and clinicians how expensive a clinical trial is. Like 2 million is nothing. That's like super cheap, very small number of people. And, you know, we need to be in the 2,000s and the 10,000 peoples to really come in this. You know, you see the work of what Nina Teicholz is trying to do with the Nutrition Coalition and trying to go up against the USDA. It's like pounding your head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
And so that to us is, how do we fund these pilot studies that can then allow them to go to like the NIH to get the big gun money, you know, for government money that can really change it. But with digital healthcare now, you can track your macros on Chronometer and MyFitnessPal and on Carb Manager much better than somebody filling out a questionnaire like the Framingham study done by the nurses, and you'll get it timestamped, and you can correlate that to somebody's glucose levels and their ketone levels. This data set is gold, I think, in really opening it up for research, but also
for just the patient,
changing the outcome.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, and that's what excites us about working with you, aside from the fact we think you're amazing, is that, you know, it's how do we help you affect change in patient outcomes and improve patient outcomes. And really, that's what's exciting about using the app and the, you know, the data-driven technology and all of the things that we're trying to do. Because, I mean, it's my big push this year is that it's ketogenic diet cannot be a diet, it has to be a lifestyle. People have to embrace it as a fact that this is going to change your life, and it's got to be a lifestyle, not a diet that you follow until you reverse your diabetes or cure your cancer is in remission or you lose your weight. Because if you do that, then you're just going to bounce back to where you were. It has to be a sustainable, thriving lifestyle, but which we follow.
We've been keto since 2015, and you know, before COVID, we would eat out a huge amount.
And I am a sommelier, so I do drink wine. I will admit, that's my disclaimer, but we choose wisely and we save our carbs over wine. We don't eat faux carbs. We don't eat dessert. We'll have, you know.
Well, and the key is that you're metabolically healthy now, and you could get away with more than some of us who aren't. And I think that is the value. Is that you can look at it and people go, oh my gosh, my ketone's only 0.8. I'm like, that's great. Good. You're doing okay. Let's look at your sugar meter and we can compare all these variables.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the parameters, the different parameters.
And so that's one thing is that I've noticed. That's why I was you know, Ben Bikikio and all these guys made fun of me because I'm like, okay, let me check my ketones before I work out, after I work out. Let me see what happens to my sugars. Because when you have data, then you know how you respond. Right. So that's when I knew Ben's workout was outstanding, because I watched my ketones drop like crazy. So I was like, okay, do I not work out because I'm burning fat and my ketones are dropping and my sugar stays stable? And so other people who are not fat adapted will see a totally different curve. And that trajectory of information gives us a ton of information. Then we know how to tweak the diet and exercise.
not only for you, but for the patient and the individual. There are a lot of people that shouldn't be drinking there. I mean, and when we first started, we gave it up just to see what would affect us. And then we slowly brought things back. And if I drink a wine and I test the next morning and I'm way out of ketosis and I'm still out of ketosis in the afternoon, I knew that wasn't a good choice for me. So,
Right.
but now I can make choices and I can say, okay, I know this is going to not be good for me. Let me just make this decision. And it's not guessing.
You know, I also, you know, you think about, you know, way back when, there's still a sort of like a myth, a hangover from the days of Atkins and beyond, when testing was more expensive. And so they said, well, just have 20 grams total carbs and you'll be fine. But then the question comes is A, do you want to be tracking your macros all the time? And then B, is 20 grams total, that can be quite restrictive. What if you could get away with 30, 40, 50 or 60 total?
Mm-hmm.
And is total better than the net carbs? And I look at that argument going, well, first, I don't want to live my life by the lowest common denominator. I want to live my life by me and where I am in my journey and for why I'm doing keto. You know, there's somebody who's going to do it for weight loss. There's somebody who's going to do it for cancer, and someone for epilepsy, and somebody for PCOS, and somebody for a neurological, like multiple sclerosis. And everybody's approach is going to be slightly different. You know, that's why the internet keto police is like a nightmare. Like that's not keto. Well, what's the backstory on that individual to decide whether or not it is or is right or is not wrong? And this is where a good coach, you know, this is what's lacking, not only in America, but in Europe, is metabolic health is not taught at medical school.
Neither is nutrition.
Dietitians hardly know anything that is really great about it, except for ketoacidosis. So they've got these big red flags, but it's got nothing to do with nutritional ketosis. And there is there's a lack of good quality coaches. Yeah. So that we can scale it up. If you know, Verta have clinically proven that they can reverse the effects of type 2 diabetes in, I think it was like 67% of their patient population. There's 38 million diabetics in America. What a profound change. If we could get over the half of those people to reverse it, we could have 90% reduce their medications and come off of insulin. There's $382 billion was spent on type 2 diabetes alone in the United States. That's a huge, and even worse than that is the human cost.
Yeah.
10 years less life. 10 years a father could be with their children, watching them grow up, get married, and have grandchildren. And that person has 10 years less life. And if you take a look at the economic cost of that individual not being productive in society, that's even worse than the 382 billion. And so this is where, you know, why for me it's such an important thing, because I think for vibrancy of society, we need to change these non-communicable diseases.
Yeah.
Like trillions of dollars going to be spent on NCDs. It's, for me, that's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's a hard thing because, you know, really for me, leaving the standard care, I took a big pay cut, right, to do what I'm doing, but I love it. Every day I come in and I tell people, it's like, this was what I put in my statement of why I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help people and see them get better and healthier. Like your doctor had to see you and go, look, you go from 207 pounds, depressed, fatigued, and then you're like on top of the world now. Your house burns down, you go, okay, let's just move on, right, type thing. And I think that's the amazing, I know it wasn't like that, but you know, but really when you see, I mean, I have patients say, I was waiting to die. Yeah. I was just waiting to die, and now he's running, and now he's got new clothes, and you know, and the other thing too is look, and you know, with PCR testing brought this to a head, is that if you don't have a good device, like if I have a bad blood pressure cuff, I can't adjust your medicines remotely if it's not good. So like knowing your ketones, knowing your sugars, I can safely get people off medications, right? That's a powerful tool. We've never had anything like this in the history of medicine, where we can monitor this closely and we can watch blood pressure come down as the sugars come down and as the ketones improve, you know, those kind of things.
That's the key point. I mean, and it's amazing. You are talking about de-prescribing.
And when you
doctors talking about de-prescribing, this is the most important thing. Hold on, you're getting them healthy, and you can say, yeah, my worry is that person having a hypoglycemic episode, and I want to de-prescribe that because it works so effectively. When you're starting with somebody new, roughly, is it in the first 30 days or 15 days that you have to watch very closely for that deprescribing moment? It's that powerful.
Yeah. And I remember when you've presented on that, and just, you know, some of the case studies to look at the deprescribing, it's incredible to see the difference, you know, and to hear the difference, excuse me.
I hear there's a non-profit in Canada, and the name is escaping me, where what they would like for the ability to do is for somebody just to walk into a pharmacy, get a test instantly at that moment, so they don't even have to have a machine, and the pharmacist be able to deprescribe.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, if you think about that, that is, you know, then you even have a lower cost because you can use a simple machine throughout you know, a larger patient portal. I mean, and you know, if you look, I still get a kick over the fact of what you can achieve with a little $45 handheld device in the home. If you kind of like think about it, you're measuring 1/5 of a drop of blood. The blood travels up there by capillary action, which is the atomic attraction between it that brings it in.
Here he goes.
Here comes the science, guys.
And this,
Eyes bleeding.
I know, but there you can do this in the home, you know, and not, you know, the analyzers in the lab are like $25,000 to $80,000, but here you can do that with consistent reliability. And that to me, when, you know, it blows my mind on how far
That we have
come.
I mean, and also part of the whole thing is to really empower the patient, so that the patient, the individual, has the knowledge of their own body, what they're going through, what their goals are, what they want, so that they can intelligently converse with you and doctors and practitioners. And I think that's a really important piece.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, we're training wheels for life.
Yeah.
And this is again the cool thing is like, if you and I, Brian, have done our jobs the right way, they don't need us anymore. They have learned how to eat. They have learned what affects their bodies, and they should not need to be pricking their fingers anymore. And you know, like I think it's so funny where I see some of these CGM people going like, "No more finger sticks." Well, I'm the guy who sells the finger sticks, and I'm the guy who really does say no more finger sticks, because if you use us and wear the training wheels, you can cast those off. And you know it then. And that's
exactly, that's the tool that you have that helps me right away to see, are you fat adapted or are you not fat adapted? We could look at the sugars. We could tell so much information. I could sit down with that patient, explain, look, here's why you're tired when you exercise. You're not fat adapted yet. So let's take it easy. Let's get you fat adapted. When we're talking about fat adapted, we're talking about lowering the insulin level. If we're talking about life's best medicine, lowering that insulin level down, that is a key to almost every disease. I don't know of an exception where visceral fat, increased insulin, stuff I've battled my entire life. So when I see, you know, like a Keto Mojo, the reason I'm excited about it is like, man, this is a valuable tool. Like, it's like you said, it's not your opinion anymore. I have a continuous glucose monitor on a patient, and they eat whatever. Everyone says an orange is healthy. They, oh my gosh, my sugar's 300 when I have an orange. Okay, then you see it. It's not my opinion. You see it. You eat certain things. You have a big omelet and your sugar's flat, and you're a diabetic and you see your sugars normalized. There's nothing more exciting to me than to see that, and to be able to check the ketones and make sure they're healthy, and check a finger stick if they don't want to have a continuous glucose monitor. And you also have the GKI, which has been really fun for me to look at too. And that's you know, that's a valuable tool. So what I'm saying is, look, what you're doing has made things available for us. And also, you know, every day in practice, I look and see who's influencing my life. Ben Bickman, stuff I use every day from a scientist who's not a practitioner, right? Dr. Unwin, another practitioner across the pond, I'm using his data. I'm using Ira Cummins' data, and all these people that have helped, and you provided a tool for all of us to say, oh, we're seeing results, because sometimes there's no weight loss, right? But I see their ketones, you know, go in the right way. I see sugars going the right way, insulin improving, inches coming off the waist, which is the biggest marker for metabolic disease and all this stuff, and COVID death, all this stuff. So you say, wow, you're getting healthier. So let's keep forward. Because I think the biggest thing is with lifestyle change, if you don't see results, you give up and quit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, give me some more time. We got this, you know, and it's amazing.
So our ultimate goal is, you know, has always been, how do we get it lower cost so that we can affect the change to a greater number of people? I mean, you know, when we first launched, it was $1 a strip, you know, test 3 times a day for less than cost of a latte. And even people said, well, $1 a strip, that's really expensive. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is. for maybe somebody in India or Pakistan or Indonesia. For an American, it's of a very affordable change. And when we introduced our new meter back in October, we were able to drop the price again by 20% for ketone strips, now like 80 cents when you purchase them on their own. And so for this, it's that we believe on this new platform that we have that trajectory down. And as we lower the cost and lower the cost, it opens it up to more people in
making it available
in disadvantaged neighborhoods and beyond. I mean, how do we tackle the food deserts in America? I mean,
and what, to that point, what's good now is that there's so many more opportunities to find good food that is ketogenic, low carb, high fat, and there's no excuse almost, because you find it at Costco, you find it at Thrive Market where you can order online, you find it at Safeway and Rayleigh's, and you have chefs like Maria Emmerich and chefs that are creating menus for this lifestyle. And so a few years ago it was maybe a little trickier, but now you don't have to no,
it's a little bit easier.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
We have grass-fed beef. We have people that have drawn into what we're doing, and they go, look, here's a healthier way to live. Here's a better way. We all agree. I mean, there's wars, dietary wars. We all agree, look, get rid of the processed food and then fall to the end of the spectrum that works for you. What works for you long-term, and that's the thing, like you're saying, look, I don't check my ketones anymore. I don't need to, but if I do an experiment, I check them. Or if I say, hey, had some extra wine. I did a wine experiment, which I failed miserably because it worked. It did what I thought it would do, and it did. I gained 7.8 pounds in 10 days because I was trying to prove to my patient when she said alcohol doesn't make a difference. I go, I think it does, right? But when you're because she's metabolically sick and diabetic. So I think we learn, it's so valuable to have these tools, and they see it and say, oh, that's not good. Corn. I have a patient who ate corn and his sugars went crazy. A mimosa, things that you don't even think about, and it spikes them like crazy, and we can see that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is someone said to me once, well, what if I test and I find out that the thing I love the most spikes my sugar and drops my ketones and does those bad things? And I said, well, then you have a choice in front of you. It's not like I always eat this donut every morning because that's what I do and I think it's okay. You then know it's not okay. And so then you have a choice. Again, you choose. You choose, do I take that donut? Or maybe I do it once a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks, or maybe eventually I don't do it at all. But I think the knowledge gives you the confidence that I'm making the choice. And yes, I am doing this.
Yeah, but there's two things there. There's choice and there's also control. And what I mean, it's, when you got your cancer diagnosis and then suddenly you're dealing with the oncologist and
well, when you get those kind of diagnoses, you immediately feel like, oh, it's like when you lose your house. I curled up in a ball for a couple of days and I didn't move, both with losing the house and cancer, because you hear it and it's like, but then you start to say, okay, am I going to move forward or am I going to die?
Right.
And if you make the choice to move forward, then you will have all the support in the world. And I'm speaking to everyone out there, whether you want to lose 5 pounds or you have a cancer diagnosis. Yeah. And so the choice is yours, how you deal with it and how you bring things into your life that will help you on that journey. And
that brings the control back to you.
Yeah, because you have oncologists, and when I met with the oncological dietitian.
That was easy for you.
Oncology diet. Anyway, she was a dietitian who helped me with my cancer. She said, now don't lose too much weight. We need to keep the carbs up so that you have energy, and watch the fat, and all the things that I now know really weren't so good. I mean, she was saying, eat a lot of carbs so that you have energy. And I wasn't underweight. I was heavier. I was 20 pounds heavier than I am now. So it was interesting. And that's, the piece, that the education piece, it's like, don't lose, got to have your glucose and carbs and,
Yeah, and I think you raised an important, like really stuff I really want to talk to you about on Life's Best Medicine. You raised the point, look, you can make choices. If you have a certain wine and then you go out of ketosis for 2 days, you go, okay, that's probably not the best brand. Let me try a different one that works. Or something says keto. I've had people say, it's not true. It says keto, but my sugars went crazy and I was out of keto, because it's marketing. There's a lot of marketing, and this allows us to have at least for yourself, a lie detector test for.
Yeah, I mean, people, sometimes we test at conferences, and somebody said, well, I had that keto wine last night. And I said, how many glasses? 5. 5 glasses is a bottle. So, you know, you just because it's keto doesn't mean it's going to be all good for you. You know, you really, and you know, one of my favorite wines is Brunello. Okay, that is something I cannot have, but maybe once every so often as a treat. And I know that now, and I enjoy it even more.
Well, then you could fast, you could do other stuff. I fasted for 2 days and all that weight came off, right? It was really, you know, a function of insulin resistance and elevated insulin and salt, you know, retention. So, I mean, we can learn and we can educate and say, okay, look, because again, you know, there's different schools of thought, but if you're too restricted, people say, forget, I'm not even going to try. I can't do that. I can never, you know, not have bread and wine ever again. But you say, well, if you're going to have wine, maybe not have bread that night, maybe not have dessert and have that be your dessert, right? Or trading off. Like that's how you make it sustainable. When people say it's non-sustainable, that means they don't understand what we're doing, right?
They don't understand their own body.
And it's also, you know, your palate changes over time. If I taste something sweet, even if it's with a sugar alcohol now, I'm like, whoa, that's really sweet. I mean, I can't believe that we used to put sugar on strawberries. Think about that for a second. When you taste the strawberry now on its own, you're like, wow, in the absence of sugar, you suddenly realize how sweet is so perceptible, and that thing becomes incredible. You know,
you enjoy it that much more.
Yeah.
Tasting, you go, wow, this is sweet. People go, no, it's not sweet. Yeah, it is. To you, it is because you're not used to it, right?
You start to embrace the acidity and the bitter, and you love the combination between fats and proteins. You had this lovely little melange thing that you'd done in the Instapot, and it was just. I didn't need to have a dessert afterwards.
Or didn't need to have rice with it. You know, we now go to we have our favorite Indian restaurant. They know us. Instead of rice and naan, they always bring us a mixture of broccoli and spinach with garlic. And they know exactly what we want. And we make sure that we get the dishes that aren't, you know, have a lot of flour in the sauces.
Chicken
masala. They bring it right out, and it's not a big deal. And, you know, so you can tweak. And I think one thing I want to say, though, that's important for people who are just starting out to understand is you sort of have to give up the sugar addiction and the sweet addiction, because that was the hardest part. Is I like carbs, I like sugar, I like sweet. And you have to train yourself. And that's where faux carbs become dangerous, because if I eat too many keto desserts, I gain weight. I made a keto brownies the other day, and they were great. They were so good that I kept eating them. And
yeah, exactly. And that's that hyper palatable. We talk a lot about that on Low Carb MD. You know, that's one of the things we really say, hey, look, there's certain things, you know, for me, it was macadamia nuts. I could sit there and eat them all day and go, oh, I'm keto. No, you're not. You're eating like 10,000 calories of macadamia nuts. You can't do that.
Exactly.
Right. So sometimes you say, well, that's keto, then we could do it.
Yeah,
you know?
no, that's such a valid point. Yeah.
So since this is life's best medicine, I want to get back when your house burns down, like what goes through your brain? You're thinking like all these pictures of what matters, what's important, like in the final analysis, what was it where you say, man, this is what devastated me, losing this, or, you know, what did you reach to at that point where I would count that as a low point in life. And most of us have feared that, but when it happens, what the heck do you do?
It's funny because we had a little time. It was really windy and the lights were going off and on. So the house didn't burn down like around us. We had some time, but there were trees coming down. So we had to get out pretty quickly. So in my mind, the first thing I thought of were photographs. Photographs of my mom and dad are no longer with us. So I took every single photo album that we had, and I put that in first. Secondly, you know, anything with memorabilia. And then we started, I mean, we had 2 kind of SUV kind of cars, Honda Element and whatever. And so we started to pile in everything, and we got a rug, and then we got, you know,
roll that up.
We got some, you know, painting, and we got actually a lot into 2 cars, but then we have 2, you know, Australian Shepherds and a cat that had to fit in, and he had to fit in.
It is, you know, I think what you miss is, you know, going through life, there are certain things that you've picked up along the way that are meaningful. They might not be expensive, and then they might not be like when Gemma was working in New York City. She was the president of Columbia University, and they were going to be throwing out this table that had been used by the housekeeper to iron all the sheets, and it was this beautiful old table, and we cut it down and made it into a coffee table, and it had great drawers in it that you could pull out the backgammon game, or pull out the the cards, and we had all of the scores from where we'd done Mexican trained dominoes with our friends. And I could flick through and remember the day when I was with Candice on one day or whatever. Those connections to your life and those bits I think is the saddest piece.
Yeah.
Like Gemma's wine collection. We had known all these winemakers in the Napa Valley, and each bottle of wine came with a story.
I do have to share this. So we're on the porch, right? The wind's blowing, trees are coming down, we smell the smoke. I had all my wine notes from studying for the sommelier exam. If you've ever seen the movie Somm, it's just that crazy. And there were notes like this of all my notes of, you know, the wines and everything. And I had them in my hand. And Dorian's like, "You're not taking that with us. We don't have room." I said, "I am taking that. Do you know how much time?" And we were actually arguing about that as the house is, you know. And so, but to me, all that work, I had to take it. I can tell you the one thing that I missed the most that I didn't take was my mom and I did a paint by number, a couple of paintings that were in the kitchen, and I never thought about them.
And your recipe book too. And
my recipe book from my mom. So people say that, you know, it's only stuff, but that was stuff that just, and I have the memories, but I would look at it and it would mean a lot. So there are things that you wouldn't think. His grandfather's watch, I forgot. And my mother's wedding dress that I was going to on our 25th anniversary, which is next year, by the way. I was going to make into a dress from, oh, really?
It is. This is
anyway, but I was going to make into a dress. She made that dress herself in 19 whatever, 50.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff is the little things you don't think about.
So one of the cool things is that, you know, we were just as we were kind of like, you know, the cars were pretty full, and I just saw a little small space, and obviously this was October, and we grabbed our Christmas ornaments.
To us, Christmas, I have a collection that I've had my grandmother. So Christmas, we always have a big tree, and it's just, we're Christmas geeks. And I hadn't thought about it, and I actually said, no, we can't fit those. Dorian made room, and oh my God, it was
because, you know, every year we would do a Christmas party for
people
our
would bring us ornaments.
I recall one year we had this lovely chestnut tree that we lost with the fires, and I collected up all the chestnuts and took them down to the local supermarket, and I was able to trade for a gift certificate for I said, look, instead of you giving me money, can you just give me the equivalent of what you were selling in a gift certificate? And they're like, oh yeah, great. So, you know, it was like 50 pounds of nuts at like, I don't know, $6.99 a pound and stuff like that. So we got this big, you know, check, and we're like, great, now we go and spend it on all the food for our friends and had a wonderful
huge
Christmas party.
So Christmas to us, I mean, talk about life's best medicine. That comes right to the point. Christmas for us is a celebration of friends. And that was what was hard this year, is that every Christmas we give this huge holiday party for everyone to get together, dress up in formal attire, so that we can share this with our friends and be with our friends. So that is,
yeah, you look at the blue zones, and the blue zones, that social aspect is so important, whether or not that social is through church or through community, playing dominoes, you know, as the sun goes down, you sometimes see those old Sicilian sort of like things or whatever, but that's really important. And I know I worry about, you know, we've gone through a terrible year, and what is that societal cost of that distancing?
Well, I can tell you, I see it as a doctor. I'm devastated by it. I see people, I've had friends cry. I've had friends lose best friends to suicide. And when you know, people worried, you know, generally what I find, which is humbling to me, is one of my friends is a multimillionaire now, owned restaurants. He goes, look, I've got money. All my employees are the ones hurting. Like, they're not getting tips. They're not getting, you know, things. And it's really devastating. It's really, really devastating. And I think nowadays we appreciate more the importance of human touch. Like for me, seeing you now, like we were together with masks on and we can't see each other's facial expression, it really takes something away. So even my patients now, when I see their face and see their smile, then they can see me give them, you know, my dimple or whatever, right? There's something to that. You know, there's something to the physical touch of another human, of just saying, hey, I got your back here. Give me a hug. You know, you're having a hard time. And it's so hard now when you can't do that. It's so foreign to us, you know, and that's a hard thing too.
Yeah.
Well, we are, you know, we are a societal animal, really. We did have small families and tribes, and this gets I think even in modern society, it's started to get splintered, and you know, I think a little bit, you know, if you look at language and song is what brings people together, and that is, if we go back, you know, that is the most important piece. And when you lose that part of your life, it's difficult. I mean, luckily, Gemma and I have been best mates for the last 25 years, and so we're okay. But I couldn't imagine what it would be like in an inner city, in a small New York apartment. When we were in a New York apartment, we would have driven each other up the wall.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I know there's a lot of that, and you know, and
keto is food, but then there are all these other parts. There's food, there's exercise, but then there is the societal gratitude part that really, this intrinsic, becomes much more valuable in the end.
Yeah, and the stress and you know, not sleeping and worried and watching the news and thinking you're going to die, and you know, the fear, all those things play a role, and we see it on our glucometer. I see the sugars go up when you're stressed, you're tense, you're not sleeping, you're worried, you know, and we talk about that quite often, you know, and we could see it and say, oh, you know, there's a trouble here.
You ever tested yourself before and after you've had to go up and speak at a conference?
I have, as a matter of fact. I gave a men's conference and I was fired up. I don't get nervous, I get really excited, but my sugar, I think, was I was fasting. Someone said, your sugar must be low. So I checked it. I had my continuous glucose monitor, and I think it was 168. And I usually run at 70 or 80, maybe, right?
Yeah.
It was 168. But exercise will do this. And that's why it's so cool to have the numbers so people can look. And I have people that are, you know, I have an 85-year-old lady. She's like, oh my gosh, look at my sugar did. Look what I did when I ate this. And like, she sees it and she goes, I'm not having that again. And, you know, one of my guys had a couple onion rings and it messed up his sugars for 4 hours. He goes, put that down as an allergy. I'm never having that again. Right. So, but I didn't have to tell them, they knew. Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's great. So in closing, guys, I really appreciate you coming on. You know, I wanted people to know who they're dealing with, you know, and what you're doing and things behind the scenes. So in closing, because this is Life's Best Medicine, what do you think individually, what do you think life's best medicine is for you? Like on your deathbed, when someone says, hey, what mattered, what's important?
I think taking more walks would be, and spending time together without the computer, without the phone. And
did you just say that?
I know, and I'm the most guilty.
You just got it on tape, and I want everyone to remember that, without the computer, because I mean, that is the challenge when you own your business. We work 24/7, as you know, starting your you know, new business. It's hard, and I'll tell you what 2020 taught us is that, and I poor Brian's heard this a few times, but synergy is so important to us now moving forward, because you learn a lot during something that's traumatic and devastating. You learn what's important, and beyond synergy, the connections. So connecting with like-minded people, friendship, you know, the synergy, the connection, that is more important to me than anything. It's, you know, it's really what you're doing now, and connecting us with all of your followers is huge, you know, and that to me is the most important.
Honesty and being real with it, you know, there's
I think that's it. People know when you're real, and they know when you're trying to make a buck. I think that is very clear, and that's why I'm very careful. Like, you know, Low Carb MD, we didn't have any sponsors, so we said no. Our integrity is too important, because, you know, if I'm sponsored by some food company and they say, well, Brian, do you really believe in that? So for me, I have no ethical problem if I believe in the people and the product, right? And I believe in those things. And I think that's something that we have to have a standard. And, you know, I think it's the same. We have to really be careful who we associate with and what we stand for. And I think for us, you know, I think about it, man, just having a glass of wine with you up in Napa one day, that is something, that's a life thing, right? And you look at, when I think about it, is how we all crossed paths, and Doug Reynolds mortgaged his house and put up all of his stuff. I'm like, you're crazy. He had no experience doing conferences. He goes, yeah, I called Gary Taubes and I sent an email to this person. They're just like, what? You did what? And it's kind of like you too. And I was thinking, man, this Keto Mojo people, they're like putting up everything all in. That's how I saw it. It was like, wow, that's like, we're waiting. We got to wait for this first shipment to come in so we can pay for the next shipment. We got to, you know, when you're doing and owning my own business now, I know exactly how it feels.
Yeah, but you know, think of yourself, Brian, a year ago when we were in Boca, and you were still deciding, and you kind of made the decision there, right, to do this, and then now look at you, and And you've talked about it, the difference in how you feel and how you're able to connect with your patients and spend time with them and make a difference. And so to me, it's just the key to it all. I mean, really.
You see that throughout this community. And I think that's what's really nice about
Yeah.
it.
I mean, the people in the community the low carb, high fat community that we connect with all have that like mind. You don't have to say it. You know that connection.
Yeah. And we saw it. And I saw people, Rob Sivas and all these different people who, like we all have our own tact, our own way of saying things, our own podcast, our own way of reaching people. And I think we all have our role. And it's funny because, Tro and I that night, remember, I don't know if you remember, but I got there and they thought I was coming the next day. I didn't even have a bed. I was there and they're like, we're sold out, the hotel. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? And Tro's like, you can sleep on my couch. And then all of a sudden he's like, my mom will be so mad if you, so he's like, here, sleep on the bed, but don't touch me and don't do the other side of all that stuff. He's just going to do it. That just says something about Tro, but it shows the community, like just sitting there talking to, Rob or talking to Ben Bickman or you guys and all the people then, and you see like, there's such a fondness and a genuine, like people want to help each other and learn from each other and say, how can I help you? And so that's why I wanted my people here to know, how what you've done, because it's easy to just say that's a big company. Like I don't generally like big companies necessarily, but when you see someone put their life on the line and you took a risk and you do this, I always respect that. And you've always been kind and decent and reached out to other people and brought people together. And I think that, like you're saying, the synergy, we all have a role to play. I'm not a researcher. I'm a clinician, but to be able to be a clinician because of what you're doing and what other researchers are doing and other clinicians say, here's what I'm using here, use this, right? And here's my talk, use my slide to teach people. Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's what feeds us. It's a selfish thing because it feels good. And, when we see people at conferences and they have a condition and they need, it's like, oh my God, this is what we miss. We miss the seeing people and connecting one-on-one. So this has been really good for us.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for having us. Hey, everyone, thanks for listening. I have to run. I have patients and things to do, but hey, everyone, thanks for listening. This is Life's Best Medicine, and be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And again, this synergy, reach out to others, help people if you can, and do the best you can. And always, and Jason Funk said this to me this morning, and he said, look, it's really about helping other people. That's what it really comes down to. Reaching out, help. It's not about what you get out of it. It's about helping other people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information. And hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.